We'll make it work.
We'll make it work. Thanks for your patience, everyone. I'm here with my good friend David Smith, who, as myself, had an opportunity to work a long time and very hard with David Levy, who was considered the king of joint custody. And as you may recall, it was Jim Cook who was considered the founder of joint custody. And as I had mentioned in my presentation yesterday, Jim was from California and a survivor of the Battle of Normandy, and fought for the rights of children, as he did as a patriot, fighting for the rights of democracy and freedom for all. David took that mission and galvanized it to help bring joint custody to 30 states in this country, and yet 20 states are still without joint custody for many reasons, and they're all bad reasons, sadly. But here is David Smith, who is, with David, the founder of the Children's Rights Trust.
Children's Rights Fund. Children's
Rights Fund. And after a major change at the Children's Rights Council that David had left, and David, we were sitting here, and you were so kind to come from Baltimore to meet with me in Alexandria. And I want you to share with us about David. We were talking about his attitudes towards the status quo and attorneys and the courts, and you were commenting on David's attitude. I had remarked that David Levy, our beloved David, never had a bad thing to say about attorneys, even privately to me. And every time I would sound off on many attorneys and states and judges for their cruel behaviors in the courts and their cruel decisions against children, David would say, "Mark, don't go there." And in public, he would always say, he would say that, in contrary to my fellow attorneys, and he would say with a smile, my belief is, and he would lead into that, rather than say, you son of a bitch, you stupid idiots, you're destroying our country, which, by the way, is what I believe, personally. David, pardon me.
Well, and I'm glad to be here with my good friend. I was sorry that I couldn't join him yesterday in his presentation and at the conference, but I was not going to let him go back to Miami without seeing him. And yes, we are great mentees of the late David L. Levy, and he was, as you know, David is a fighter. So David fought Goliath, and so we are fighters. And so Mr. Levy was a very calm and generous, nice, easygoing guy, but you did not want to do something wrong, especially when it came to children. He was, I call him the champion of children, champion for children, and so, he always stood up for children, and especially when, the court system did them wrong. Or parents, because a lot of times parents can do their children wrong as well, and he was all about holding accountability to the court system, to parents, making sure that they take their differences and not take them out on their kids. And so I respect what my good friend Mark is doing, and we just follow in the footsteps of David L. Levy. He is a foundation for joint custody, like Mark said, and making sure that the rights of children are protected, because people don't realize children have rights and they deserve to be protected. And so that's what we do. And he stood all the way up until his last days fighting for children, fighting a system that was hurting children and not putting their best interests forward. And so what we do is we continue to walk in that path and those footprints that David left for us to fill, and I'm just honored to be here with my good friend. I think we all have a little bit of David in us, and he carries us. I know Mark knows Diana Thompson very well, and she was very connected to David, and it was great to see so many new people and familiar faces through the Facebook Lives yesterday at the conference, and the other Mark that stepped. He seems like a wonderful
Mark Ludwig.
Yeah, he seems like a wonderful guy to take this champion and just keep moving it. And I think that's the thing that we have to work on, is how do we unite and come together for our children and our families so that we can show society and a court system that they really need to reform the family law. And when and people don't really realize that when you talk about an overall reform, it's criminal justice, juvenile, and bail. They all pipeline and link together. But the family piece, if we can fix that family component, it'll fix criminal justice, it'll fix bail and juvenile, because when you break a family, you send children into juvenile, you send family into the criminal justice, and then the bail for both. And so really talking about a full overhaul of family reform will fix these major issues that are going around affecting our social to our children. So I'm honored to be here with Mark and see him back to back to Florida. But I welcome back anytime, and I would not have missed this day to at least catch up with him. And I thank Facebook world, you got somebody right here and that is definitely fighting in the footprints of Mr. Levy, and I'm right there beside him. And his book is definitely Preserving the Family Ties. That is a book that is not just a book to read, it is a tool and a resource that could create a platform for the change that we're looking for. And I think every judge, every attorney, every parent going through custody or divorce should have this book. So reach out to Mark and get that book, because it will change your life and how you think and how you can change the problems that are going on in our world.
Thank you so much, David. This has been a long road for all of us, an emotional road and a vital one, because every action taken in court affects generations. I have seldom spoken about it publicly, but I am a targeted parent, and my children had been alienated, and sadly, 20 years ago, the courts did not understand the vindictiveness and divisiveness of a parent, what a parent can do with children. And over the years, as I've come to study it, I've earned my PhD in high conflict and studied psychology so that I can better understand how we can go about intervening. It's an imperative that we all still have. As I mentioned earlier, only 20 states or only 30 states now have some sort, not ideal, but some sort of joint custody, or currently called shared parenting. 20 states do not. That's 40% of the states do not have any law protecting the rights of children to have both parents in their lives. The decisions made in courts affect generations, not only the immediate generation of the child and their parent and the grandparents, but also how the child is going to grow, how they're going to function psychologically, emotionally, and socially. And we know the outcomes that I share in my book, Preserving Family Ties, that are so devastating because of the court rulings, because of many attorneys who are just seeking to battle. And family court, sadly, is a battleground. It's not a ground, it's not a location for resolving issues, particularly with those in high conflict. They don't need, you don't rub salt in a wound, and that's what's happening when people are in high conflict and going to family court, sadly.
And I'll add to the equation is, I'm a product of the family court system. They did me wrong. That is how I was able to connect with Mr. Levy. And I turned my own pain into a passion, and I'm an advocate now. And I advocate for, I work on legislation. I've been working in the state of Maryland to try to bring shared parenting to our state, which has sadly, me and Mr. Levy passed a commission that he served on, and the commission was supposed to have been an effort to bring our bills that had not come to the vote. And so, of course, it is all political a lot of times, because when you have political leaders that are in office that make money as family law attorneys, and then you have a family bar association that wants to stand opposed to things. You're looking at a $55 billion industry that is taking money away from children and families that could be going back to that. And so we really need to focus on how do we re-educate our family court system and make it more family friendly and put the family back into the family law, because right now it's familyless when you go into the family courts. And it in some states, like Mark said, we have states that are starting to move forward in an effort to change things. Mr. Levy passed the rebuttable presumption of joint custody in the District of Columbia many years ago, and so that was a foundation of laying out what he did. A couple weeks ago, I think the state of Virginia put in a measure with House Bill, I think it was 1351. It's not a full shared parenting, but it has the courts to look at shared time. So the judges have to look at it. It's not a full shared parenting. It's more based off of, I think, the Kentucky bill that just passed. But it's a step forward for them. So as we are a nation right here in the District of Columbia in the DMV area, Maryland really needs to step out, because Maryland is a state, as they've claimed, of equality. We have marriage equality here, which I support. And so we really need to figure out how we bring forth family equality, bringing families and keeping them connected even when they separate and they get divorced. And so I've grown over my pain of having my children. I mean, a lot of people don't realize I had custody of my kids when I settled in a settlement. But then when a judge had to make an uneducated, biased decision, he took them away. So I've seen the good and the bad and the ugly of our family court, and I could have easily just given up. And I knew that that was not an option for me. So I became a strong advocate to help educate and push for legislative change, because really the change comes at the legislation and policy. Because when you can change laws, then you can implement education and these books and these tools that Dr. Mark has put forward. But it's hard to implement that stuff when you have a status quo broken foundation with no law and policies to uphold those pieces. So, you know, it's been a journey, and it's going to be still a journey, but I think the journey is starting to see that we need this, and not at a state level, but at a national level. I mean, because if you look at other countries, like I think it's Norway, is it Norway? There are other countries that support a family intact model of keeping, you know, children connected with both their parents, even when their parents separate. And so the research is out there. We know it's out there, but the opposition, which is usually the family law industry. And I'm not going to knock attorneys, because I mean, I have some good ones that, you know, and some good judges that tend to look on the side of what's best for children. But for a large margin of percentage, the ones they don't. They look at it as how they can litigate. Because if you think about it, if it takes only a few hours to mediate versus days to litigate, and you're making $400 to $500 an hour, do the math. I mean, you know, so I advise attorneys to really start thinking about how they can mediate and help save families and putting the best interest forward, because that is how you will gain a better representation of who you are as a family law attorney, representing the family values of what's best for family law and our children.
Now, what pardon me, what David has said, of course, is absolutely right, and I am very quick to stereotype, because the numbers show the stereotype in the negative. However, what I'd like to do in concluding this, and I'm so grateful for anyone that is watching this now, and hopefully having some more information. What I want to invite everyone to do is to think of those you know who may be involved in the court system as attorneys or even therapists or forensic evaluators, and discuss with them their views about shared parenting and children's rights. And if they have interest and if they feel that they're alone, then have them reach out. David, if they're in Maryland, reach out to David. David, what is your email?
They can reach me via cell, 301-974-2508.
Again?
Or 301-974-2508. Or the website is www.childrensrightsfund.org. I'm also the vice president of the 100 Fathers, so it's a fathers organization here in the DMV area. We're national fatherhood facilitators, and that is the 100 Fathers, which is www.100fathers.org. So, but you can reach me through my cell again, is 301-974-2508, or through Dr. Mark.
And thank you. You know, many of you may know me as the founder and the CEO of the Toby Center for Family Transitions, and I am rethinking now our mission to become more advocates nationally. And if you know of people, if you know of anyone in any city, metro area, state that is interested in being connected to the philosophy that family courts need to be more aware, more educated, and more compliant with the needs of children, have them reach out to me. And my email is Mark, M-A-R-K, period, Roseman, R-O-S-E-M-A-N, at thettobycenter.org. Mark.Roseman at thettobycenter.org. And if you know people going through any crisis in their own search for child custody, and they need help in their state, or if you know of people in other states that want the support of other attorneys and other therapists who are the same vocation, also reach out to me, and we will make sure that they're connected with people in their state so they are not alone. What's very peculiar is that when I was going through my own issues some 20 years ago, I was asked to serve on the Governor's Commission for Divorce, Custody, and Children. Meanwhile, I was not able to see my children because the courts were not compliant with the court orders. So go figure. But times are changing. The mood in the country is changing. Parents are continuing to be vocal, and we want to be supportive of those that want to make changes in their own state. So blessings to you all, and we really appreciate your time, and please share with others who are going through any crisis that they are not alone, and they can reach out and get support from David, myself, and referrals to other people in their own states who can be more immediately supportive of them. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And be well. Bye-bye.